Daniel had never planned to travel so far from Earth, but his work as an engineer had carried him across the stars. He had spent years fixing machines on colonies and repairing small ships that passed through trade hubs. To him, the work was steady and predictable, but on this day, everything changed. His small ship, the Horizon, had landed at a busy space station called Port Vega. The station was known for its massive markets that drew people from every world. There were aisles full of technology, food stalls selling alien fruits, and merchants shouting in different languages. Daniel walked through the market, his tool bag over his shoulder. He was only planning to buy spare parts and maybe a new navigation chip. The bright lights of the stalls flickered above his head while alien music echoed in the background. He had been to many stations before, but Port Vega always amazed him. Every corner seemed to hold something new, something strange, something alive with stories. He moved past a row of vendors selling tiny machines shaped like insects and walked by a group of tall aliens who carried glowing stones. At the far end of the market, he noticed a section he had never seen before. There was a quiet area with clean white lights and a simple sign that read, "Companion Services." He slowed his steps and stared. At first, he thought it was just another kind of trade, but when he saw figures standing calmly inside the area, he realized it was different. Inside, there were alien companions waiting to be chosen. They were not prisoners, not slaves. Each one stood with quiet dignity, wearing simple clothing and holding a small tablet that listed their names and skills. Daniel had heard about the program. Many companions were volunteers who signed contracts in hopes of leaving their old lives behind. Some sought adventure, some sought safety, and others simply wanted to belong somewhere new. Daniel almost walked away. He told himself he had no reason to even look. But his eyes caught something unusual. Among the companions stood a young alien woman with silver eyes that glowed faintly in the white light. Her hair was pale, almost like strands of glass, and her skin carried a soft golden tone. Unlike the others, she was not looking around nervously or trying to catch someone's attention. She was calm, as if she already knew where she wanted to be. Daniel hesitated, then stepped closer. The attendant at the desk looked up and asked politely if he wanted information. Daniel nodded slowly and asked about the girl with the silver eyes. The attendant smiled and explained, "Her name is Lyra. She comes from the world of Kaelora. She signed her contract willingly. She is skilled in languages, navigation, and basic engineering. She has requested transfer to a human ship if possible." Daniel looked back at Lyra. She met his gaze with a steady calmness. It was not a desperate look. It was not fear. It was something else. He could not explain it, but in that moment, he felt as if she already knew him. He approached her carefully. "Hello," he said, unsure if she would understand him. To his surprise, she replied in clear English. "Hello, traveler. My name is Lyra." Her voice was soft but carried a strength within it. Daniel shifted awkwardly and asked, "Do you really want to leave your home? Why would you join something like this?" Lyra tilted her head slightly and gave a small smile. "I chose this. My world did not offer me a place where I belonged. I seek new skies, new stars, and someone who will not see me as a burden." Daniel felt an odd pull in his chest. He had only meant to ask a simple question, but her answer made him pause. He thought about his own life. For years he had traveled alone, fixing machines, eating in silence, and sleeping in empty cabins. He never considered how lonely it was until he heard her words. The attendant asked gently if Daniel wished to sign her contract. Daniel hesitated. His mind told him it was foolish. He did not come here for this. But his heart told him something else. In a moment of quiet decision, he nodded. "Yes, I'll take her." The process was quick. Daniel signed his name on the tablet, and the system confirmed the transfer. Lyra was now his companion, at least by law. She bowed politely and followed him out of the hall. As they walked back toward the docking bay, Daniel felt a strange mix of emotions. He carried spare parts in his bag, yet beside him walked someone completely unexpected. Lyra's steps were graceful, her silver eyes calmly watching everything. She did not look afraid. In fact, she looked peaceful. On the way, Daniel asked her, "Do you regret it?" "Coming with me, I mean?" Lyra turned her head and gave him a clear answer. "No, I'm truly happy. You may not understand yet, but I feel free." Daniel was startled. He had thought she might be sad, uncertain, or even angry. But she said she was happy. He could not understand it, not yet. When they reached the horizon, Daniel opened the small ship's hatch and let her inside. The ship was simple, with 2 bunks, a compact kitchen, and a cockpit filled with controls. Lyra stepped inside and looked around with interest. She touched the walls gently as if greeting the ship. "This will be our home?" she asked. Daniel cleared his throat. "Yes, for now. It's not much. Just an old ship that keeps moving." Lyra smiled softly. "It is enough. It feels alive." Daniel showed her where she could rest. He told her she was free to do what she wanted, and that he did not expect anything from her. But Lyra simply nodded and began helping him store the parts he had bought. She moved with quiet skill, placing tools in the right spots and adjusting small wires on the ship's panel. Daniel noticed her hands were steady, her movements precise. He leaned against the wall and watched her for a moment. He wondered what her life on Calora had been like, and why she seemed so calm here in such a strange place with a stranger like him. He wanted to ask, but the words stayed in his mouth. Later that evening, Daniel sat in the cockpit staring at the stars through the glass. Lyra joined him silently and sat in the seat beside him. For a while they said nothing. The hum of the ship filled the silence. Finally, Lyra spoke. "You wonder why I am happy?" Daniel blinked. "Yes? I don't understand." She looked at the stars outside and answered, "Because for the first time I chose where I belong, and I chose this." Daniel felt his chest tighten again. He turned to look at her, but she did not look back. Her silver eyes stayed fixed on the stars. In that quiet moment, Daniel realized his life was no longer the same. He had come to Port Vega only to buy spare parts, but he left with something far greater, a companion whose happiness came from being by his side. And though he did not fully understand it, he felt something stir in his heart. Something new, something fragile, but something real. The horizon drifted away from Port Vega, its engines humming softly as it slipped into the quiet stretch of space between trade routes. Daniel sat in the pilot's seat, adjusting a few controls while Lyra observed from the co-pilot's chair. The stars stretched out before them, countless points of light, each one holding its own mystery. For Daniel, space had always felt like work. Ships, repairs, contracts, and endless travel. But with Lyra sitting beside him, he felt an unfamiliar sense of company. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Daniel was used to silence, but this silence felt different. It was not heavy. It was not lonely. It was calm. Finally, Lyra broke it. "Your ship is old, but it is strong. I can tell it has carried you for many years," Daniel chuckled. "Strong maybe, but it's stubborn too. The horizon has broken down more times than I can count. I keep patching her together, hoping she lasts a little longer." Lyra ran her fingers lightly across the console, almost as if she was greeting the ship. "Machines respond to care. They know when someone loves them. This ship has stayed alive because you care for it." Daniel gave her a puzzled look. He had never thought about his ship that way, but the way she spoke made him pause. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just too cheap to buy a new one." Lyra laughed quietly, a soft sound that surprised Daniel. He had not expected her to laugh so easily, not after everything. Her laughter was light, and it seemed to make the cabin warmer. Later, Daniel showed her the rest of the horizon. He explained the small kitchen unit, the storage compartments, and the repair bay. Lyra listened carefully, her silver eyes shining with interest. She touched the walls, examined the tools, and even asked questions about the smallest details. She seemed eager to learn everything. When they reached the engine room, Daniel pointed out the main drive. "This is the part that gives me the most trouble. Overheats when I push too hard. Sometimes I think it's going to explode." Lyra stepped closer, tilting her head as she studied the machine. She placed her hand near one of the panels and closed her eyes for a moment. "It is not hopeless. The balance is off. If you realign the cooling vents and clean the energy conduits, it will run smoother." Daniel blinked in surprise. "You know engines?" "I know many things," Lyra said simply. "I studied on Kailora, but no one wanted to hear my ideas there. Here, perhaps my knowledge can matter." Daniel felt something shift inside him. He had thought she was just being polite when the attendant had listed her skills, but now he realized she might truly be able to help. "All right then. We'll test that theory tomorrow." That night they shared their first meal together. Daniel had cooked something simple, protein packs mixed with dried vegetables. He apologized for the plain food, but Lyra smiled as she tasted it. "It is good. It tastes like care." Daniel shook his head. You really do see the world differently, don't you? Lyra looked at him thoughtfully. On my world, I was told I did not belong. People said I was too quiet, too strange, but I believe there is value in seeing differently. Perhaps that is why I am here. Daniel felt his chest tighten again, just as it had at the market. He wanted to say something kind, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he nodded and kept eating. The next day, they worked side by side in the engine room. Daniel handed Lyra tools, and she explained her ideas with patient clarity. She showed him how to adjust the cooling vents, how to clean out clogged conduits, and how to reroute the power lines. Daniel had fixed engines all his life, but her methods were new, efficient, and strangely elegant. Within hours, the Horizon's hum became smoother, stronger, steadier. Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow and stared at the machine. I can't believe it. You were right. It's running better than it has in years. Lyra's smile was small but genuine. I told you. Machines listen when you respect them. Daniel grinned. Maybe I should keep you around just for the engines. Lyra tilted her head. And what about the silence? Do you want to share it alone again? The question caught him off guard. He looked at her and realized she was teasing just a little. For the first time in years, Daniel laughed. A real laugh that shook the quiet ship. Days passed, and Daniel noticed how quickly Lyra adapted. She learned the ship's systems, practiced navigation charts, and even began cooking meals with the limited supplies. She was graceful, careful, and always eager to help. Daniel had thought he was taking responsibility for her, but instead she was making his life easier. One evening, as they sat in the cockpit watching the stars, Daniel asked about her past. Lyra, you said you didn't belong on your world. What did you mean? Her silver eyes grew distant. On Kalora, people are expected to follow certain paths. My family wanted me to serve in the Houses of Harmony, but I did not fit their image. I asked questions they did not like. I spent time with machines instead of people. They called me a shadow among the bright. Daniel frowned. That sounds unfair. You seem bright to me. Lyra turned her gaze toward him, surprised by his words. For a moment, her calm mask broke, and he saw a hint of emotion in her eyes. Thank you, Daniel. You do not know what it means to hear that. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, feeling a heat in his face. He was not good at giving compliments, but he meant it. Lyra was not a shadow. She was steady, patient, and strong. Over time, the bond between them grew. Daniel found himself talking more than he ever had before. He told her stories about Earth, about the green forests of Oregon, the busy streets of New York, and the quiet lakes where he used to fish with his father. Lyra listened with interest, asking gentle questions that made him remember details he had long forgotten. In return, Lyra shared stories of Kalora. She described golden skies and crystal rivers, the songs of the wind and the glowing plants that lit the night. But she also spoke of loneliness, of being seen as different, of longing to escape. Her words were simple, but Daniel could feel the weight behind them. One night, as the horizon drifted through a calm sector of space, Daniel asked her, "Do you ever regret leaving your world?" Lyra thought for a moment before answering. No, regret is not what I feel. I feel hope. For the first time, I can live without fear of being cast aside. With you, I am free to be myself. That is why I said I was happy. Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the stars. He did not know what to say. He had bought her contract, expecting nothing, but somehow she had given him something far more valuable, a sense of connection, a sense of meaning. As days turned into weeks, the horizon became more than a ship. It became a home, shared by two souls who had once been strangers. Daniel began to realize that Lyra was not just a companion by contract. She was a partner, an equal, someone who had already changed the course of his life. And though he did not speak it aloud, Daniel knew something was growing between them, something fragile, something real. The silence of space no longer felt empty. It felt alive because now he was not alone. The horizon drifted steadily through the vast darkness of space. Days passed, marked only by the hum of the engines and the slow ticking of the ship's clock. For Daniel, the routine had always been dull, but with Lyra aboard, every moment carried a new kind of meaning. She was no longer a stranger. She had become a part of his world. One quiet morning, Daniel found her sitting in the cockpit, her silver eyes fixed on the glowing stars. She did not notice him at first. She sat very still, her hands folded in her lap, her face calm but distant. Daniel cleared his throat softly. Lyra turned her head and gave him a faint smile. I was watching the stars. They feel closer here than they ever did on Calora. Daniel slid into the pilot's seat beside her. You must miss your world sometimes. Lyra shook her head slowly. Not the world, only the skies. But I think I have found a better one here. Daniel looked at her, uncertain what to say. She always had a way of answering with honesty, and it made him think more deeply than he was used to. He smiled faintly and said, You know, I never thought much about the stars before. To me, they were just points on a map, places I had to go for work. But when you look at them, you make them seem alive. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Perhaps they are alive in their own way. Every star burns with its own song. We are just too small to hear it, Daniel chuckled softly. You and your way of seeing the world? It's different, but I think I like it. Over the next few days, Daniel and Lyra spent more time talking. He told her about Earth's history, about explorers who once crossed seas without knowing what they would find, and about machines that changed how people lived. Lyra listened with wide eyes, asking careful questions, always wanting to know more. She was curious about human ways, from food to family to music. Daniel tried to explain as best as he could, though sometimes he laughed and admitted, Humans don't always make sense, even to ourselves. In return, Lyra shared more about Calora. She spoke of golden cities built on high cliffs where towers shone like crystal under the light of two suns. She described the wind that carried songs across the valleys, and the glowing rivers that lit the nights. Yet her voice grew quieter when she spoke about her place there. I was always apart. My family wanted me to follow their path, to join the House of Harmony. But I could not live their way. I loved the quiet of machines more than the noise of gatherings. To them that was shameful. Daniel frowned. That doesn't sound fair. Wanting something different isn't wrong. Lyra looked down at her hands. It does not matter now, I am here. And here I can be myself. Her words touched Daniel more than he expected. He thought of his own life, drifting from station to station, always alone. Perhaps he too had been living apart, though for different reasons. He realized he had never really shared his thoughts with anyone until now. He found himself saying, You belong here, Lyra, at least, you belong with me. Lyra lifted her gaze. For a moment her calm mask slipped, and Daniel saw emotion shine in her silver eyes. She whispered, Thank you. Their bond deepened with each passing day. Daniel began to rely on her, not only for help with the ship but also for companionship. She made the silence of space feel less heavy. She made his meals taste less plain, his repairs less tiring, his journeys less endless. When she was near, the horizon no longer felt like a machine. It felt like a home. One evening, while they worked together on a navigation chart, Daniel noticed how carefully Lyra traced the routes with her slender fingers. You're good at this, he said. Better than me, I think. Lyra smiled gently. I like maps. They show the paths we can take even when we feel lost. Daniel thought about her words long after she left the cockpit. He realized she was not just talking about maps. She was talking about life. The following week brought a test of their growing trust. The horizon approached a crowded station where Daniel needed to trade for supplies. He told Lyra she could stay on the ship if she wanted, but she shook her head. I want to see. I want to walk among others again, so they went together. The station was noisy and bright, filled with merchants, traders, and travelers. Daniel carried a list of parts he needed while Lyra walked beside him, her eyes full of curiosity. She paused often to look at strange foods or listen to unfamiliar music. Daniel noticed that many people stared at her. Some looked with admiration, others with suspicion. Lyra seemed calm, but Daniel felt protective. While Daniel haggled with a merchant over engine parts, a pair of rough-looking traders approached Lyra. One of them sneered. What's a Kaleran doing with a human? She doesn't belong here. She should be with her own kind. Lyra stood tall, her face calm, but Daniel saw the tension in her shoulders. He stepped forward quickly. She's with me, and she chooses where she belongs, the traders laughed. You think you own her? Humans always think they can take what they want. Daniel's jaw tightened. I don't own her. She's free. She stays with me because she wants to. The men muttered but backed away when station guards appeared nearby. Still, the encounter left Daniel shaken. He glanced at Lyra. Are you all right? She nodded slowly. I am fine. I am used to being questioned. But thank you for standing with me. Daniel felt anger burn in his chest. He hated how they had spoken to her, as if she was less than she was. He swore silently that he would always defend her no matter what. That night, back on the horizon, Lyra surprised him by placing a hand gently on his arm. "You did not need to defend me, but you did. That means more than I can say." Daniel looked into her silver eyes and felt a weight lift from his heart. "You're not alone anymore, Lyra. Not while you're with me." From that day, their trust grew even stronger. Daniel began to see her not just as a companion but as someone who mattered deeply to him. He thought about her when she wasn't in the room. He listened for her laughter. He found comfort in her presence, even in silence. Lyra, too, began to open more of herself to him. She asked about his dreams, his fears, his past. She listened when he spoke about his childhood, about his parents, about the years of drifting alone. She never judged. She only listened, and that was more than anyone else had ever done. One evening, after a long day of repairs, Daniel sat with her in the cockpit. They watched the stars in silence until Lyra said softly, "Do you know what I see when I look at the stars?" Daniel shook his head. "What do you see?" "I see paths. Each one is a place I could go. But now I no longer want to go alone. I want to walk the paths with someone who sees me." "And you see me, Daniel." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at her, and for a moment he forgot the stars outside. All he could see were her silver eyes, calm and bright, filled with something he could not name but could feel. He whispered, "And I see you, Lyra, more than I ever thought I could see anyone." They sat together in silence again, but it was not empty. It was full, of trust, of connection, of something new that neither of them fully understood yet. But they knew it was real, and in the endless stretch of space, that was enough. The horizon drifted into a busy sector near the edge of human territory. Daniel had received a message from a merchant on a small station who claimed to have rare supplies and tools. Daniel needed fuel cells and spare parts for the horizon, so he decided to stop. Lyra joined him in the cockpit, her silver eyes calm as always, but Daniel noticed she looked thoughtful. "Are you worried?" Daniel asked. "Not worried," Lyra answered softly. "But places with many people often bring trouble. I do not fear it, but I am ready for it," Daniel nodded. He trusted her instincts. Since she had joined him, she had proven herself wise in ways he could not always explain. Together, they guided the horizon into the docking bay of the small station, its lights flickering as the ship settled in place. The station was rough, not like Port Vega with its polished markets. Here the walls were scratched, and the air smelled faintly of oil and smoke. Traders shouted from stalls, and guards leaned lazily against walls, watching with little interest. Daniel led the way, carrying a list of what he needed, while Lyra walked beside him. They moved through the crowded corridors, searching for the merchant who had sent the message. After some time, they found a stall filled with machine parts, wires, and glowing fuel cells. The merchant, a tall alien with gray skin, greeted Daniel warmly. "Ah, human traveler. You came for supplies, yes? I have what you need." Daniel began to check the parts while Lyra looked around. She stood quietly, but her posture was alert. Daniel noticed her glancing at a group of rough-looking traders nearby. They were watching her too closely, their eyes filled with something Daniel did not like. He tried to ignore them at first, focusing on the fuel cells, but soon the traders approached. One of them, a heavy man with scarred arms, sneered, "What's a Killeran doing with a human? She doesn't belong to you." Lyra straightened but said nothing. Daniel turned to face the man. "She's not property. She's my companion, and she chooses where she goes." The man laughed harshly. "Companions are contracts. Contracts can be broken. I say she belongs with us now." Before Daniel could answer, the man reached toward Lyra. She moved swiftly, stepping back, her eyes sharp. Daniel's anger rose. He stepped between them, his voice firm. "Back off. She stays with me." "This isn't your decision." The other traders circled closer. The merchant behind the stall looked nervous but said nothing. Daniel clenched his fists, ready for a fight he knew he might not win. But before anything more could happen, Lyra spoke, her voice calm but clear. "I am not yours to claim. I stand where I choose, and I choose him." Her words made the man pause for a moment, but then he snarled, "Then you both will regret it." He motioned to the others, and suddenly the situation turned dangerous. Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her back through the crowd. They ran down a narrow corridor, the sound of footsteps chasing them. Daniel's heart pounded. "We need to get back to the ship," he said quickly. But before they could reach the docking bay, the traders cut them off. One of them swung a weapon, but Lyra reacted faster than Daniel expected. She pushed Daniel out of the way and struck the attacker's arm, making the weapon fall. Her movements were quick, precise, almost trained. Daniel stared for a moment, surprised, but then joined her in the struggle. They fought side by side. Daniel used his strength to push attackers back, while Lyra moved with speed and accuracy. She dodged blows, struck pressure points, and defended Daniel when he stumbled. At one point, a traitor raised a blade toward Daniel's back, but Lyra stepped in front of him, blocking the strike with a piece of metal she had grabbed from the ground. Her silver eyes burned with focus, her calmness replaced by fierce determination. Finally, station guards arrived, drawn by the noise. They shouted commands and forced the traitors to scatter. The guards asked questions, but Daniel only said there had been a dispute. He did not trust them enough to explain more. He thanked them quickly and guided Lyra back toward the horizon. Once inside the safety of the ship, Daniel turned to her. "You saved me," he said, still catching his breath. Lyra looked at him steadily. "And you stood for me." "We saved each other." Daniel sat down heavily, rubbing his forehead. "I didn't know you could fight like that." "I learned to defend myself long ago," Lyra said quietly. "On Kaelora, being different means being vulnerable. I had to learn." Daniel stared at her, feeling both admiration and sorrow. "You shouldn't have had to live like that." Lyra's expression softened. "Perhaps. But now it means I can protect you just as you protect me. We are stronger together." Daniel felt something stir deep inside him. He realized then how much she meant to him, how much her presence had changed his life. She was not just a companion. She was someone he trusted with his life. That night, the horizon left the station behind. Daniel sat in the cockpit, the stars stretching before him. Lyra joined him, her presence calm as always. They sat in silence for a long time, the memory of the fight still fresh. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Lyra, I need to say something. You're not just part of a contract. You're more than that. You're my partner. I can't imagine this ship without you now." Lyra turned her silver eyes toward him. For the first time, Daniel saw something deeper in her gaze, something warm, something steady. "I know," she whispered. "And I feel the same. You gave me a place to belong. I will not leave it." Daniel felt a weight lift from his chest. He reached for her hand and she did not pull away. Together they looked out at the stars side by side. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was full, of trust, of loyalty, of something new and unspoken. As the horizon carried them away into the endless dark, Daniel knew one truth with certainty. He had not just purchased a companion that day at Port Vega. He had found someone who would stand with him, fight with him and choose him, not because of law, not because of contract, but because she wanted to. And for the first time in his life, Daniel felt he was no longer traveling alone. He was traveling with someone who had become a part of him, someone who made the stars brighter and the silence alive. The horizon glided through space, its engines humming softly as the stars stretched endlessly around it. Daniel sat in the cockpit adjusting some instruments while Lyra stood nearby, observing the distant constellations. After everything that had happened, the markets, the fight, the long journeys, they had grown close in ways Daniel had never expected. She was no longer just a companion by contract. She was a presence he could not imagine life without. Daniel looked at her and felt the truth of it in his chest. He realized he had never considered the possibility of someone truly choosing to be with him, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And yet Lyra had made that choice quietly and completely. One morning, as the horizon drifted past a small nebula, Daniel approached her. "Lyra, I need to ask something." She turned, curious. "What is it?" "I could end your contract. You're not bound to me anymore. You could be free to go wherever you like. I want you to choose to stay, not because you have to, but because you want to." Lyra studied him for a long moment, her silver eyes calm and steady. Then she smiled, a soft, serene smile that made Daniel's heart ache. "I choose to stay, Daniel. Not because of a contract, not because of obligation. I choose to be with you because I am truly happy here." Daniel felt relief and joy wash over him. He reached for her hand and she took it without hesitation. The gesture was simple, but it carried more meaning than words could express. Together, they looked out at the stars, knowing their path forward was shared. Over the following weeks, the horizon became more than just a ship. It became a home filled with laughter, quiet moments, and shared work. Lyra helped Daniel repair systems with skill and care, but she also brought warmth to the small ship. She cooked meals that were simple but nourishing, kept the quarters tidy, and offered thoughtful suggestions for improving daily routines. Daniel found himself relying on her, not just for help with the ship, but for companionship, guidance, and comfort. One day, while navigating through a dense asteroid field, Daniel struggled to keep the ship on course. Debris was scattered everywhere, and the horizon shuddered as it passed close to a spinning rock. Lyra moved beside him, calmly pointing out safe paths. Her eyes scanned the instruments and she called out instructions. Adjust the thrusters slightly. No, now tilt the nose 3 degrees left. Steady. Daniel followed her guidance, and together they maneuvered through the asteroid safely. Once clear, he leaned back in his seat, exhaling. I don't know what I would do without you, Lyra smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. And I would not want to be anywhere else. We help each other, Daniel. That is what makes us strong. The experience reinforced what Daniel had begun to feel. Lyra was not just a companion. She was a partner, equal in skill, in thought, and in courage. The connection between them was real and mutual, built on trust, understanding, and choice. Later, as they approached a quiet sector to rest and replenish supplies, Daniel sat in the cockpit looking at the stars. Lyra joined him, settling beside him on the small seat. He felt the warmth of her presence, steady and comforting. You know, he said softly, I never expected any of this when I came to Port Vega. I thought I was just getting a companion, maybe someone to help me on the ship. But I think I got much more than that. Lyra looked at him, her expression gentle. And what did you get? A friend, Daniel said slowly. Someone I trust, someone I care about, someone who makes the stars seem brighter, even in the silence of space. Lyra's silver eyes glimmered. Then it seems we have both found what we were looking for. They sat together in silence, letting the quiet of space fill the ship. It was not empty. It was alive with understanding, trust, and the unspoken bond they shared. Daniel realized that this quiet shared life, this feeling of being seen and valued, was something he had longed for without even knowing it. As days passed, they explored new systems, traded for rare parts, and navigated through sectors where few humans had gone. Each journey strengthened their bond. They faced challenges together, from small mechanical failures to unexpected encounters with other travelers. Through it all, they relied on each other's skills and instincts, and their respect and affection grew. One evening, while resting in the Horizon's small lounge, Daniel asked Lyra about her dreams. Do you ever think about what you want for the future? Lyra smiled faintly. I think about new skies, new places to see, and new experiences. But mostly I think about continuing this life together. With you, I have found what I wanted most, a place to belong. Daniel felt a deep warmth in his chest. He took her hand in both of his. I feel the same. I never imagined having someone like you with me. You've changed my life, Lyra. She leaned closer, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. And you have changed mine. I am truly happy, Daniel. Happier than I have ever been. The stars outside continued to shine, endless and eternal, but inside the horizon there was a new light, a light born of trust, companionship, and mutual choice. Daniel realized that he had not just purchased an alien companion at Port Vega. He had found someone who chose to be with him, someone whose happiness was as real and meaningful as his own. As they continued their journey through the galaxy, Daniel and Lyra knew that whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them together. Their bond was no longer defined by contracts or laws. It was defined by choice, loyalty, and a shared joy in being together. And in the vast, quiet expanse of space, that was more than enough. The horizon carried them onward, past stars, planets, and nebulae. Each new system brought wonder and discovery. Daniel often found himself watching Lyra as she moved through the ship, her presence calm and comforting. He realized that the days of loneliness were behind him. The future was no longer uncertain because they would face it side by side. One quiet night, as they floated near a distant star cluster, Daniel said softly, Lyra, whatever comes next, I want you to know, I am glad I chose you. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Lyra's silver eyes met his, full of warmth and certainty. And I am glad I chose you. Because I am truly happy with you, Daniel. That is all that matters. Together they watched the stars, hands clasped, hearts connected, ready to continue their journey through the endless wonders of space. The horizon was more than a ship now. It was a home, a refuge, and a testament to the bond they had built. And for Daniel and Lyra, the galaxy was full of possibilities, adventures, and the quiet joy of being together, truly and freely.